So welcome to our session on the Sacral Chakra. So previously we've been working on Muladhara Chakra. Sorry, I'm still letting people in if you see me moving about. We've been working on the Root Chakra. If you ever look at a diagram of the chakras, the first three are all aligned quite closely together. And of course, all the chakras are linked. So although I'm talking about Svadhisthana, the Sacral Chakra, we're still working, they're all linked, so we're still working on grounding and digestion and all the things that are associated with the first three chakras. So the Sacral Chakra is one I'm quite excited about sharing with you. I come from a very traditional Indian teaching, which is the Krishnamacharya Vinaya Yoga teaching. So there's nothing kind of new age about what I'm sharing. These are going back, if you like, to the ancient texts. And later on, probably next week, I'm going to be sharing with you some of the codes to wake up the Sacral Chakra. I'm always a bit wary of using things like codes and waking up because I think these are overused these days and they don't really mean anything. But certainly I am going to be giving you some pointers which are going to help you to come more in alignment. So the Sacral Chakra, it has several qualities and it is represented by the element of water. So it's all about fluidity and movement. And it's also considered to be our source of prana, our source of power. But as with all the chakras, we need it in balance. So just going to have a look at my notes about it. Yeah, it's responsible for movement. And when it's balanced, we can have more fun, we can be more creative, we can explore more. It's certainly about being creative. It's quite often talked about as being our sexual center, but that also is a place of birthing for creativity. So even if, we're not having sex or we're not in a relationship or it doesn't matter, just being creative is associated with this chakra. If prana is weak in this chakra, we become rigid and still and maybe frightened of change. And of course, we know there's lots of change going on at the moment in the world. Sanskrit word for change is parinama. And part of our yoga practice is to help us to manage that change, to go with it. And also, if this chakra is too close, we become emotionally numb and we haven't got any excitement for life. And I know excitement is tricky when you're ill and you're feeling fatigued, but I'm going to come on to the advantages of that in a minute. However, if there's too much prana in this center, because remember, it can be too closed or too open, we might become addicted to pleasure, we might have mood swings, addicted to drama, or emotionally dependent on others. So I've got a lot more to say about this chakra, but I think that's enough of an introduction this week. What I do want to say before I start actually doing breathing and movement is that when I say personal power, I think you would probably agree that certainly for the last 5 years, we've been disempowered actually. And when we have fear pushed to us, it makes us not trust ourselves. And then we think we have to listen to experts outside and what they're saying and go along with that. But what these yoga classes and the chakras are about is to really come back to ourselves, to come back to our own authority, our own signal, if you like, our own feeling of who we are, and then to begin to trust that. And then that is the only authority, our inner authority. And this is where our power is, coming back to ourselves and not listening to all the noise that's out there, because your instinct and your intuition is much more important. It's real. It's what is real. But in order to come back to yourselves, we need to come away from the distraction. And this is where I believe illness can help us, because although illness can be very horrible, it includes fatigue and pain, it can take us out of the noise and the distraction. And it does give us this opportunity to discover this small, still point of who we are. So with that said, please come to a comfortable sitting position. And just as you settle, I'm just going to check somebody's put a message in the chat box. So come to sitting and just take a moment or two to explore your posture, thinking about space between the crown of the head and the tailbone. Yes, thank you. That was a really important point. So the sacral chakra, so if you remember, so look up at the screen for this, Muladhara chakra is around the base, and the sacral chakra is really to do with the pelvis. So it's the area below the belly button and above the pubic bone. This is the sacral area here. And it's concerned with, you know, what you said, fertility and our organs associated with fertility, whether we're male or female. And I'll be saying more about its meaning physically next week, because all the chakras relate to physical areas, as well as emotional, spiritual, and mental. So just come into your body and take a moment to explore how you're feeling physically. Seeing if you can do this without judgment. And then I'd like you, because sacral chakra is particularly concerned with emotions, just explore how your emotions are. Now, there might not be any at the moment, and that's fine too. But just explore. And if you have got any strong emotion there, just see if you can allow it to be as it is. And then we're going to start to move, thinking of this idea of liquid and play. And all I'd like you to do is just begin to wave your arms around. And just explore, almost as if the air were treacle, and you're just exploring in any way that feels right. So you might like to do swimming motions, or up and down. Don't tire yourself, or you can begin to roll your shoulders. And it's almost like you've got treacle in the air and you're just exploring it. Maybe you're waving your fingers too. Think of playing with liquid. And then rest your hands back on your knees. And then we're going to think about this pelvic area. Now, you can take your hands here, if this helps you, this sacral area, just above the pubic bone. You can maybe interlock your fingers. And we're going to do the seed mantra for this chakra, just to begin to wake it up. So it goes like this. I'll chant it first, then you, if you would like, you chant it back. Om Vam Vam Vam. So that's a V, V-A-N. You try that. And again. Om Vam Vam Vam. Om Vam Vam Vam. And then we're going to take our hands to our waist. And if you can do this from sitting, you're going to make tiny movements as if you're making a figure 8 with your pelvis. You can do this from sitting or lying. So you imagine you've got a figure 8 on your pelvis and you're just moving around that figure 8. Just It's actually really good for the lower back. So we're kind of working energetically, but we're also working physically. And then you can take that in the opposite direction, just a really small movement. You're trying to isolate the pelvis rather than, I mean, everything else is moving a little bit, but you're trying to isolate moving the pelvis. And then come back to stillness. And then we're going to do some breathing, but we're going to direct the breath into this lower spine area that's parallel to this pelvic area. Now, we've had quite an interesting chat on our Facebook group about breath. Breathing is incredibly important towards our recovery, but if your nervous system is really dysregulated, you might find it makes you more anxious to focus on the breath. So if that's you, then I want you to not worry about breathing, but just focus on the lower back. But for the rest of you, if you're okay with breathing, we're going to breathe in through the nose, and as we breathe out through the nose, we're going to make the out breath longer. But we are visualizing the lower back widening and spreading. So it's almost as if the lower spine is lengthening on that exhale. So breathe in through the nose, longer out breath as the tailbone lengthens. Just a few breaths like this. And then come back to your natural breathing rhythm. And I'm going to ask you a reflective question before we come down to the mat. And the reflective question is, what do I give my personal power away to? And how can I reclaim more of my power back? What do I give my personal power away to? How can I claim it back? So our power can be in what we're watching, what we're listening to, what we believe. And in this way, we scatter our prana outwards. We want to bring it back to who we are. And then when you're ready, please come down to a comfortable lying position. On your back, preferably, but it's fine if it has to be on your side or your front, that's also okay. It can be on a sofa or a bed if you're particularly tired. So preferably have something under your head to help the back of the neck to lengthen. And you might like to start actually with your knees bent, because we're going to be doing some more pelvic work and it's going to be more comfortable if the knees are bent. But just start by exploring how the body feels on the surface you're lying on. You might like to look up at the belly button just to check you're straight. And again, just explore this sacral area, the pelvis area below the belly button, front and back. And then we're going to do some breath work with colour. Again, if you don't want to focus on the breath, you might like to just focus on the movements of the belly as it rises up and down. And if that's too much for you, focus on the softness of your hands. So we're going to breathe in up the right arm into the heart, and we're going to visualize an orange light there. And then we're going to breathe out an orange light down the left arm. And I'd like you to imagine this light is liquid. So inhale up the right arm, through the fingers, up the arm to the shoulder, into the heart, this orange liquid. And then exhale down the right arm. And as I say, if you don't want to visualize the breath, you can feel the softness of your hands or just the movement of your belly, whatever works for you. And then releasing the breath, we're going to use a mudra, which is a hand gesture. If you would like, remember, everything is, you are sovereign, not me. So what I say is just a suggestion. So the mudra is, we just join the index fingers and the thumbs together to make a diamond shape, and we rest it just below the belly button. If you need to look up at the screen, I'm holding it now. But if you'd rather just rest your hands, that's fine too. And again, we're going to do our chant. Now, I'm going to start you off, but you have your own pitch, you have your own rhythm, and you have your own frequency. So don't necessarily go with my pitch or my breath rhythm. So I'm going to do it once, and then you do it in your own breathing rhythm, your own pitch, 3 to 5 times. So we'll start together. So breathe in, focusing on the pelvis. Om, vam, vam, vam. So you just continue in your own breath rate, your own breathing rhythm. And when you finish, just rest the hands beside the body. And again, when you've finished, another reflective question: what does personal power mean to me? Now, as you're listening to this, you might think, well, I have got no power because I'm ill, I'm very tired. But I assure you, you have amazing power. This is just you calling it back. And it starts with you calling your sovereignty back to you, which is where it belongs, and not scattering it by taking so much attention in the external world. So we often talk about the mantra as being a seed point, which means it's something which can grow from there. And likewise, as you begin to reclaim your personal power, even if you haven't yet got the energy, it's going to begin to grow and grow. as you become more aligned and sovereign and authentic, less afraid, less angry about what's going on in the world, putting your attention on peace and stability. This is how your personal power will grow. And now I'd like you to imagine you've got a circle or a clock face on your pelvis. And you can rest your hands either on your belly or beside you, wherever your hands are comfortable. And all we're going to do is to start circling around the pelvis, circling around our clock face. If you're not sure, you can look at the screen. The knees are going softly with the movement. Now, some of you might want to start clockwise, some of you anti-clockwise. Just go with the way that works for you, what comes naturally. And then we're going to circle our pelvis in the opposite direction. Keep your awareness in the lower spine and the pelvis. And pause when you're ready. You don't have to wait for me to tell you. If you're tired, pause. Come to stillness before I say. So listen to your body. And then again, we're going to breathe into the lower spine, imagining it softening on every exhalation. Imagine the spine softening and lengthening, the base of the spine on every exhalation. And then we're going to do one more very gentle movement. We're going to rock the pelvis with the breath. So breathe in where you are. As you exhale, take the navel to the spine, and you're going to tilt the pelvis so the smaller of the back comes more into your support. And then as you inhale, you relax the tailbone back down. Exhale to tilt the pelvis, smaller the back comes more into your support with your mat. Inhale and relax. On that exhalation, you might like to take the navel slightly into the spine, just to begin to wake up your core muscles. So the movements on the exhale, navel to spine as you tilt, inhale to relax. And again, just a few times, please listen to your body. Please don't do any more than you should. Work with kindness. Relax down when you need to. And then still with the knees bent, draw the soles of the feet together. Open the knees out to the side. And just rest down in, this is called Supta Baddha Konasana. And as you rest here, you can either take the hands to the belly or beside you. And see if you can relax the small of the back a little. And feel on every exhalation, the knees coming further and further down to the mat. And remember, I always say, and I get this from the tradition I work in, that these subtle movements that we make and the chants are much more powerful than even if you were doing yoga class with lots of strong dynamic postures. And I think, you know, in the Whereas we've become so used to thinking of yoga as something which is very physical, something which we do, but actually the breath work, the relaxation, the focus, the mantra, this is where the power is. And for the next 3 to 5 breaths, I'd just like you to hum on the exhalation. Again, find your own voice, your own pitch.